I had my near life experience. And what I mean by that is a lot of us are just going through our lives kind of on autopilot, distracted by our phones, by screens, by, whatever worries are in our minds, or just putting things off till someday. It's like we're near our life, we're not fully in our life. And then my father passed away, and it was a big wake up call. We can live in death denial until it really hits us. And then you're like, oh my God, I don't have all the time in the world. And it's not morbid, it's motivating. That's how I see it. It puts a fire under your tush to live braver, live more authentically. And instead of thinking, oh, that's a risk, it's more of a risk if you don't do it. You start to really think. And I have certain practices that I follow that help me to live more bravely and authentically because of my mortality awareness.
Welcome to Linda's Corner, where we bring more hope, healing, and happiness to the world. My name is Linda Bjork, and today we're going to be talking about maximizing joy and minimizing regret. I'm delighted to welcome Karen Salmansohn. Karen is a leading behavioral change expert, serial entrepreneur, best-selling author with over 2 million books and courses sold, and a former columnist for Oprah and Psychology Today. Karen has appeared on CNN, New York Times, USA Today, and more. You can reach Karen at her website, notsalmon.com, and I'll include that link in the show notes. Welcome, Karen. I'm so glad that you could join with me today.
Oh, I'm so glad to be here too.
I've been looking forward to this, and I love what I do because I love talking to interesting people about interesting topics. And today we're going to be talking about something kind of deep, and that is our relationship with mortality. And we're not talking about being afraid of near-death experiences, but being wary of near-life experiences. So is it okay if we talk about your mortality wake-up call and how it changed the way you view life?
Sure, absolutely. Um, well, I do say in the book, the first part about it, that I had my near life experience. And what I mean by that is a lot of us are just going through our lives kind of on autopilot, distracted by our phones, by screens, by, whatever worries are in our minds, or just putting things off till someday. It's like we're near our life, we're like life adjacent, we're not fully in our lives. And then my father passed away, and it was a big wake up call to really, first of all, it was like, that there's this thing called death, but it's amazing how we can live in death denial until it really hits us, in some way with a health scare or the death of somebody you love. And then you're like, oh my God, I don't have all the time in the world. We don't know none of us know. So it woke me up, and it actually made me aware that I wanted to have a family already. Like I kept putting it off because I was enjoying my career, but that was a big wake up call. And I actually have my dad's passing to thank for having my son, and because it woke me up to really saying I have to stop saying someday and start saying now. And weirdly enough, my son was born 4 years to the exact day that my dad passed on. My son was born August 27th. My dad passed August 27th, but 4 years before. So it was kind of a weird wink from my dad, like, I see you. Congratulations. Like, that's how I sort of interpreted it.
Oh, that's beautiful. So now every time you celebrate your son's birthday, you can also think about your father and say, thank you. Thank you for helping
Yeah.
me to wake up a little bit here.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Definitely.
Isn't
So,
it interesting that sometimes it takes thinking about death, thinking about that there is an end before we recognize, oh, I'm supposed to be living. I'm supposed to be doing something because that autopilot is very, very strong. And it just is like ruts in the road, and you just do what you do because that's what you do without
yeah.
even thinking about it.
Yeah. And mortality awareness creates urgency, and then urgency creates action. Like, if we didn't have death, I think a lot of us would procrastinate forever about, like, oh, tell her I love her, I'll tell her next century. Or, oh, write that book in a couple of eons, I'll write that, if we lived forever. So death is the ultimate procrastination buster because you realize you don't have all the time in the world. You just have the little bit of time that you have, and you don't even know what that is. And it's not morbid, it's motivating. That's how I see it. It puts a fire under your tush to live braver, live more authentically. Uh, and instead of thinking, oh, that's a risk, it's more of a risk if you don't do it. You start to really think. And I have certain practices that I follow that help me to live more bravely and authentically because of mortality, my mortality awareness.
Ooh, teach us about that. So
Sure.
you've got
So,
kind of a guideline to help us to say, oh, okay, that's a good idea, I guess. How do we
yeah.
apply it?
Yeah. Well, in my book, I write about how I actually wrote my own eulogy and how that helped me so much. I also give this assignment to my clients, and it's really helped them. People have vision boards or they have mission statements. The eulogy is sort of like that, only more so because it's your whole life. And in my book, I make it easy for people to write their eulogy. I included this, like, fill in the blank eulogy template, sort of like, Mad Libs, where you fill in the blanks and then you have your own eulogy when you're done. So it doesn't have to be scary to write. It takes some of the creepy crawlies out of it. And but here's a little insider info that I'll share with you and your listeners, that the blanks in your eulogy, a lot of them have to do with core values. That when you're on your deathbed, what you're going to be thinking about was, did you live your life as your best self? And a lot of the ways to live your life as your best self with the most meaningful relationships, meaningful experiences, is being someone who embraces your top core values. And this is based on, first of all, just kind of living life and realizing that these are the moments where you do actions and habits that you're proud of and where you feel connected with people. But also, it has a little bit to do with Aristotle's philosophies on life. If you want, I can share a little bit about that.
Yes, please.
Okay, so I love Aristotle. He's like my one of my bigger influences, actually. Uh, but I write about him in the book in a very easy to understand way because I tend to write with humor, and I make it not feel like heady to read. And Aristotle says that you don't know if you've lived a good life until you're on your deathbed, and then you look back and you see, aha, I did good, or uh-oh, oops, too late. So he says that you should begin every project with the ends in mind, including that gigantic project called your life, and think about how you want to feel on your deathbed and then reverse engineer it and live that way now. So that's why it's so effective to write your eulogy, because that's your vision statement on how you want to live, aspirational eulogy you, and then you look at current you and you think, what do I have to do to go from current me to aspirational eulogy me? What are the bridge habits that will connect me and get me there? So a lot of it has to do with the core values that you want to be living by. And so in my book and in my life, I have my own favorite top 7 core values that I embrace, and I put them on what I call my to die list, which is not to be confused with a to do list. So a to die list is sort of like a to do what matters most list. And the truth is that to do lists usually don't have the meaningful things, like, that remind you of living brave or being more loving. And so what you do for the to-die list is you create identity-based statements that have to do with your core values. So
Ooh.
and psychologists say that you're more likely to do something if it's an identity based statement. So let me back up because I know I'm tossing around a lot of stuff all at once and explain to you what identity based statements are and why they work. So we right now are walking around doing actions based on our identity, whether we know it or not, subconsciously. So if you think I am a sloppy person, then you're going to do the habit of a sloppy person. If you think I'm an organized person, you will do the habits of an organized person. If you walk around thinking I suck, you're going to do the habits of somebody who kind of sucks, you know? So you have to really own your identity. Your identity is your destiny. Your identity is the puppet master of your habits. It will decide what you do. So what I do in the book, I explain this more, but I'll explain it to you guys now, you and your listeners. Um, you ask yourself, who do I need to become to get everything I want in my life? Who do I need to be? Because who you are being will influence what you do. Now, Frank Sinatra, great singer, he sang "Doobie Doobie Doo," but he's a backwards personal development guru because it should be, instead of do be doobie do, it should be do be
Be,
do. Right.
be.
So you want to start off with your identity because if you have an identity that's different, it will get in the way of you doing that thing. And also, if you remind yourself of your core values, you're more likely to do it because if you don't, then it creates what they say is cognitive dissonance. So, for example, because of this to die list and my identity based habits, I live here in New York and I don't drive a car at this point in my life. It's just, I stopped driving. I'm like some character from Sex and the City episode where they don't drive. And my very good friend, Danielle, was having a birthday in Connecticut, like far away. And I didn't know how the heck I was going to get there. It was a big birthday party. And so my first instinct was like, oh, how do I get to Connecticut? And then I wrote down, I am a loving person. And so I figure out how to get to Connecticut for Danielle's birthday. And linking it to my core value of loving, which I want to be and which I consider myself embracing, I made it possible to figure out how to get to her birthday party. So I didn't let the, oh God, how do I get to Connecticut win? I am a loving person. And so I find out how. And if you attach a core value to something, you're more likely to do it. So I even found this out when, after I had my son, I had gained a little weight. And I was at that same time working on a book that had stylized images and photography and graphics in it. And when the publisher sent me the book, I could sort of see through the pages. And I thought the paper should be thicker. And so I called up and I was like, I think, can we just look into getting a thicker paper so the image doesn't show through? It's not too, a little translucent or so. So I realized after that phone call, gosh, I'm a kind of discerning person. That's one of my core values, I guess, is discerning. Then I was about to gobble down cheddar cheese, goldfish, pizza, all of those things that I was the reason why I gained weight after my son was born. I was eating all the food that he was eating. And I thought, wait a minute. If I'm a discerning person, I value being discerning. A discerning person would not be shoveling, cheddar cheese goldfish into her mouth or pizza or mac and cheese. So I re-owned the core value of discerning. And I said, I am a discerning person. I value being discerning. And so I eat food that is healthy and good for me. And by reframing it to the core value of discerning, I was able to finally lose all that pregnancy weight. That's how strong identity-based habits are.
Oh, that's fantastic. Okay. I would love to elaborate even a little bit more on this identity-based statements. When we talk about being on autopilot, most people, when you think of I am, and then you fill in the blank, the things that we put in is our career, I am a teacher. I am a doctor. I am a writer, whatever that may be. And for many people, we stop right there. If we're going to add something else, then we add usually a relationship, like I am a daughter, a sister, a aunt, whatever that type of thing is. And again, we stop there. And then, as you mentioned, we can kind of say and think, I am a messy person, or I stink, or whatever. We
Mhm.
recognize that when we're saying those, I am a whatever person, that we are identifying ourselves with that trait. And so I think this little wake up call that you're giving here, which is a subset of the major thing, in and of itself is a golden nugget worth thinking about, pondering about. Would you mind giving us a couple of examples of saying, okay, now I'm aware. Now I'm aware that the things that I identify with and identify as affect my behavior
Mhm.
in everything. I think we need to spend a little bit more time and effort into recognizing, who am I? Who do I think I am? Who do I want to be?
Mhm.
And start with a template of, wow, I did not even realize that that's what I've been doing.
Yes. Well, in the book and in my life, what I do is I do a lot of journaling, and I write at the top of a page variations of the following: who do I need to become to, get everything I want in my life? Or who do I need to become to? And then I put in a goal. And also, okay, so I'll give you some examples. Who do I need to become to be the best mom I could be? Or specifics: who do I need to become to help my son to do better on his science test? Like that granular, that specific. Who do I need to become to repair this relationship with X, Y, or Z, whatever it is? Who do I need to become to stop fighting with my partner? Who do I need to become to whatever is a goal from that day's activity? And some of the things that you even said as you were talking about being a sister or a partner or a teacher: who do I need to become to be a teacher that I'm proud of? Who do I need to become to be a sister that enjoys deeper relationships? So just to say teacher or sister or daughter without some sort of attribute attached to it will not help you necessarily become your best self. So that's part of what I do by adding the core value. And and then I write it down and I make it part of my to-die list. And then I think about, I actually sometimes I come up with things that aren't even on my to-do list to do that day. So, and I schedule it. So, for example, to make sure that I accomplish it. So I link it to the core value. I am brave, or I am, and sometimes I veer off of my list. But if there's a conversation that I know I need to have that will improve my relationship, and I'm like, oh, like the old, I know, oh, like I write about this in my book, even in a different chapter. I talk about mortality awareness because that's kind of the theme of the book, but how to wake up with mortality awareness habits, which a lot of them are based in living a life of strong core values. And then the middle of the day, where you have that integrity slump. Like you can start off your morning like, yeehaw, I am definitely going to live my highest potential life. And then life wears you down. So I was saying to my son, um, one night, Ari, you got to clean up your room, or Ari, you got to brush your teeth, whatever it is. I don't remember which thing I was asking him as a mom to do. And he answered me, I don't know, mom, I'm just not feeling it right now. And that cracked me up because you know what? We all feel that way. You don't have to be like a kid, a tween. You're like, I don't know, I'm just not feeling it right now. So during those times, that's where you have to remind yourself of your core values. And then that, like, okay, I am a strong person. I am a loving person. I am a brave person. I want to be those things. And that's where the cognitive dissonance kicks in because, yes, I am a strong person. And then there's other little tricks you can do. If you're feeling resistance to the core value, because the core value will always solve the problem. Like, why don't I want to do this? And it's usually a core value at like, I'm not being brave. I'm not being. So who do I need to become? I need to become strong. I need to become brave. And if you don't feel it, like if you write it down, you're like, I don't know, I'm not really that strong, or I'm not really that organized, or I'm not really, whatever the core value is, then you tell yourself, the old me used to be disorganized. The new me is organized, to try to get yourself on board with it. Or you can reach around in your memory because chances are, even if you're not feeling that core value in the moment, you have embraced that core value in the past. And you can remind yourself, wait a minute. I remember I was brave. I remember one time I went up to that cute boy in 11th grade and I said hello. And you remind yourself of times you were brave to jumpstart that core value. I mean, there's a lot of different ways around this, a lot of workarounds. But I know it's weird that I start off telling you it's a book on mortality awareness. And then I am going down this whole other path talking about core values. But that's because truly, on your deathbed, as morbid as that phrase sounds, on your deathbed, or you could say at the end of your life, you could say when you're 80 or when you're 90, if you don't want to even think about the words deathbed, when you're 80 or when you're 90, you're going to be looking back on those times that you're proud of, which means you embraced high level core values. And if you live a life like that, then you are going to live a meaningful life.
Wow. Not to a to-do list where we're accomplishing and saying, hey, I sold X many books or courses, or I bought this company. It is the fulfillment is living according to our core values.
Exactly.
And I loved when you're talking about the example of your son, and everybody has felt it, whether or not they've articulated it. I'm not feeling it right now. And that I'm feeling is a transitory thing where we can think, okay, right now I am. I have maybe felt that way in the past, and I could maybe feel that way in the future. Right
Yes.
now, this is a state of being. Whereas I am is more stationary and solid. And it's
Yes.
beautiful that the things that
Yes.
you are putting as stationary and solid
Oh,
core values, that is who I am. That is who I want to be. And if I wasn't, I love that you created, well, okay, let's say I'm not the things that I want to be. Okay, old me, I was, new me, I am. So that is a beautiful way to help transition because I think very few people are all of the things they would like to become. We are a work in progress.
and you know what? You said something that got me thinking because it's not just you're not your accomplishments, you're who you became because of your accomplishments. So in the end, like, oh yeah, sold 2 million books. No, but that you might be proud of, but you're going to be proud of, I was brave. I pushed through. I got those rejection letters. I kept writing. Those are the stories that you're going to be proud of, not the check it off. Okay, got married. No, I had a beautiful, meaning relationship. It's not going to be the check marks. It's going to be who you became in the course of getting those things, because you could get some things and be a bad person as you go about getting those things, and then you won't feel good about yourself. And also what you're saying is something, it refreshed my mind that another thing that I say a lot and feel a lot that I wrote about too is that in life we have a choice of enjoy now, struggle more later, or struggle now, enjoy more later. So meaning you could take the easy, I'm not feeling it right now, you know, and then you just like sit and eat a pint of ice cream. And that's the enjoy now, struggle more later. But then you're going to like, your health is going to be bad, or your relationships, you were lazy about it, and those are going to suffer because of it. So, but if you pick the struggle now, then enjoy more later. Put in the effort to have that courageous conversation. Put in the effort to figure out how to get yourself, your non-driving self, to Connecticut. Figure out putting in the effort for them. And it's the difference between, again, Aristotle, who I love, between living a life of hedonia, which is pleasure, versus eudaimonia, which is the higher form of happiness. And that's a little bit because in the book, I do share a lot about Aristotle's philosophies, but in a very easy to understand way. And a lot of people, Aristotle believed the reason why a lot of people are unhappy is that they confuse pleasure for happiness. And pleasure is about immediate gratification. It's fleeting, usually is associated with the ego, the body, like sex, fame, glory, status, money. But on your deathbed, or if you don't like the words deathbed, when you're 80, when you're 90, your future self, um, those aren't going to be what you're going to say, yes, I lived a really beautiful, meaningful life. It's going to be about the moments of eudaimonia, where you did the struggle now, enjoy more later options. I studied hard. I moved through that problem. I moved through that challenge. And in fact, some of this helps people, the philosophies that I share. If right now you're thinking, oh my God, what do I do? My life, I don't know. I feel stuck. I don't even know how to get out of this stuck state. These are the ways to get out of that stuck state, is to first imagine the future that you want and then grow into the type of person that would live that future. Because if you don't, you have to change your inner world, your inner thoughts, your mindset to create the life that you want for yourself.
That is beautiful. And what an important distinction between, do I just want to be entertained now or just have whatever pleasure is right here, right now, that probably doesn't take any effort? Or do I want to do something that might take some effort, but it will bring me joy that's deeper, that is worth it? That when I look back, I think, wow, I didn't waste that time. I lived it. I
Yeah.
enjoyed it. I embraced it. And you
Yes.
talked about this mindset change. Would you mind giving us some examples that you have seen as people have made these changes? What kind of changes, once you make that internal change, do they see on the outside?
Well, that's where the embracing the core values are. If you say, I am brave, then you will start to become brave, not in the area, like look at the word discerning. When I started to re own the word discerning in a mindful, conscious way, I am discerning. Then what happens is I actually wound up being more discerning, not just in food, and not just in the pages in my book, but in throwing away the clutter in my home, being more discerning even about the people in my life or how I spent my time. So it has a ripple effect. So once you own, but first you have to recognize what core values are most important to you. And so I help people to do that in the book. And I ask a bunch of questions that are kind of fun to answer. But I also do a lot of reverse engineering of where people run into problems in their life. Like how death doulas tend to say people have kind of the same regrets at the end of their life. A lot of different death doulas have come to the same conclusion. They sit at the bedside of people that are passing, and a lot of them have said, I wish that I had let myself had more fun, or I wish I hadn't worked so hard. So then you look at that and you reverse engineer it. Who do I need to be to make sure I don't feel I work too hard? Who do I need to be? And then you reverse engineer it and you look at the core values. So this might shock you, but one of my core values is fun, because so many people, when they get to the end, they're like, I wish I hadn't worked so hard. And that's why you shouldn't just follow a to-do list. You need to have a to-die list, because you could be the most productive person on this freaking planet. You could be the most productive person in the cemetery, and you might not have lived the most meaningful life. You need to make sure that you're living a life of meaning and purpose. And that's where the core values come in. And that's also where, in general, living a life where you are of service, where you're giving back, where you feel like there's meaning and purpose in your life, that you're leaving what I call ripples, like you're sharing of yourself. You don't have to have a legacy that's like cured cancer. You can have the legacy of just being really kind to people, to helping, being mentor to people, of, whatever it is you're sharing, your particular insights or strengths or talents, your creativity. So you are leaving ripples of who you are, your was here mark on this planet. And those will be the things that you'll value when you're 80, 90 on your deathbed.
Oh, man. Okay, I loved every single thing that you said. And Karen, I am so grateful that you brought up that fun was one of your core values. And there was a little nagging thought in my head when we talked a little bit earlier about saying, okay, when I'm choosing now, I want something that is it easy and will bring regret later, or is it going to be hard but bring something joy later? And that is a beautiful message, but there is a potential for some people to misunderstand that
Hmm.
says, I want to have joy later. It's not time now.
Many people do that. You're right. They
We
put
used to
off.
keep that.
uh,
And I thought, I don't want to say anything because I don't want to derail the truth that is in that. But now that you've brought this up, I think we can expand a little bit more. I think joy and fun are wonderful. And I think it's different than just seeking, I don't know, mindless
Hedonia.
entertainment. Yes, yes.
Yes, there is a difference. And by the way, Aristotle, he was the guy that was like everything in moderation. So, you know, yes, but if you're living a life of total hedonia, it's going to be superficial.
Oh, absolutely.
But a certain amount of hedonia is good for you, because, and Aristotle even said that. He said that uh, he believed that we have souls, but whatever you want to call it, your core self, whatever your belief system is. And he said that the soul needs sensory delight. That was Aristotle, but in moderation. So, but if you make it, and the difference is it you're too many people, according to Aristotle, that's my belief too, that remember when I said begin with the ends in mind and how you want to feel on your deathbed. Well, he said the reason why people sometimes get to the end, get to the deathbed, and they realize, uh-oh, whoops, I didn't live my best life. It's because they had the wrong ends in mind. Aristotle believed the total ends of life is to learn lessons that help you to grow into your best self. And too many people think the ends of life is become the richest person on the planet, become the sexiest woman on the planet, to have the most Instagram likes on the planet. And they have the wrong ends in mind. So, but part of becoming your best self is letting yourself be authentic and laugh and have fun. There's like a whole wheel of who you should be. It should be balanced and it should be beautiful. And so you definitely should have a happy life. No, he's not against that, but it's about not being derailed by too much superficial stuff, and making sure that you are doing things that your soul delights in and that your soul is proud of, or your core self, whatever your belief system. And I don't proselytize soul versus core self. And in fact, I'm sort of what I call spiritual logical. I'm somewhere in the middle because I'm very psychological. I'm also kind of philosophical, so you can tell. But I'm sort of curious about the spiritual world. But I say that instead of being woo woo, I'm one woo. I'm just like woo, like, because I'm open instead of like being woo woo. You know what I mean by woo woo? I'm really open, but I also like the logical explanations on things. So that's why I kind of go back and forth between, even my own head, between the language of soul versus core self.
That was excellent. And I love the word delight. That word speaks to me. It speaks to my soul. And I think if we feel delight, then we're going to be going, that's a good indicator that we're doing something well. It's
Yes.
not just a time waster. It's not something, it feeds my soul. It's bringing me joy now, and it's making me better. This has been delightful. Is there anything else you want to make sure that we cover before we close today?
No, I'm enjoying, I love how you have so beautifully summed up some of what's on my mind. And I really enjoyed this conversation.
Oh, I have too. And it's been fun, and it also has given me something to chew on later. So I'm looking forward to listening to it again, and I'm looking forward to reading your book and not only reading it, but applying. So thank you so much for being with me today.
Thank you for inviting me on. Thank you.
In closing, I'd like to share a quote by Brene Brown. She said, "I believe a joyful life is made up of joyful moments, gracefully strung together by trust, gratitude, inspiration, and faith." Today, I invite our listeners to live a joyful, to die for life. See you next time on Linda's Corner. Thanks for tuning in to Linda's Corner podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share it with your friends to help us inspire even more listeners. Be sure to visit hopeforhealingfoundation.org for free and affordable resources to help you overcome life's challenges. And explore healingbreathworkdetox.com, where you'll find transformative tools for deep inner healing and lasting change. Also, don't forget to check out my books, Crushed, A Journey Through Depression, and You Got This, an action plan to calm fear, anxiety, worry, and stress. Your journey to hope, healing, and happiness starts here.